Half a day, it's Annie Faye, and I'm back again for another episode. So today's episode, amazing, beautiful, loved it so much. In general, I just love having conversation with my friends and getting to sit down, record it, and have other people hear like how amazing these people are that are doing the work or just living life in a particular way that I think is so amazing. And with that being said, today's episode is with Palu Larry Raigetal and Melissa Taitano, both Poe-initiated navigators under the School of Wadiang, and a surprise guest, three of the students from their traditional navigation class. So we have Nolan Flores, Michaela Blas, and Isa Flores. This was such a great episode. It started with thinking it was just going to be Larry and Melissa, and then we kind of ran late. We are supposed to film it before their class, ran late. Their class started, and they were just down to talk with us and tell us more about canoe house navigation, traditional knowledge, and traditional learning, really. And it was just great getting to have this student teacher conversation, and that's kind of like unofficially, it's kind of I guess you could say it's kind of a series that I ended up doing, right? I did the episode with Vanessa, Mama Chai, and then there was me and Melissa, and then again me, Melissa, and Larry, and now it's even better because it's now Melissa, Larry, and their actual UOG students. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this episode, but for you to enjoy this episode, I have to make some apologies. First, apologies to Larry and Melissa, because in the first 9 minutes of the podcast you're about to listen to, their audio did not record. Sorry. So their audio did not record, so what I had to do was I took my microphone, made it, my mic picked up some of what they were saying. I had to make it really loud, so it's gonna be rough for the first 9 minutes, but then their audio comes in and it's great. It's beautiful. They're crisp, they're clear, they're better. So please just bear with us for the first couple minutes. The second apology I have to make is that I made a grave error, and that grave error is that I lost my voice the night before to karaoke, and no excuses. I lived and I learned, and I will no longer do that again. Currently, still recovering. It's been a while. So you're gonna hear my voice not doing well at all. Actually, my voice still isn't doing that well, as you could kind of hear. But we did the best with what we could. There's gonna be, if for anyone watching this, the video portion of this, there may be parts where there's gonna be two parts where I take out my own audio from the video and I redub it. I just do a different voiceover because I don't want to subject you to the pain of listening to my squeaks. My friends heard it and they couldn't stop laughing, and I just cannot handle that. Because it really is so funny, but for the sake of this podcast, you're gonna hear a voiceover. So if my voice does not match with my lips, moving on, right? Like let's just be kind and graceful and nice in the comments. Thank you. But I've talked way too much already, and without further ado, this is the beginning of the episode, and the beginning of the episode cuts pretty immediately. We start rolling the cameras, and we're kind of just really setting up, but Larry asked as we were kind of getting our footing, he asked, can he do a chant, a blessing, and we decided to keep it in because it was really it was a really beautiful start to the podcast. So thank you everyone that helped. Thank you Mayor Juarez for helping me behind the scenes, and thank you to my press friend Vince for letting me sit in his room right now and edit my life away and record this little intro and the outro that you're gonna see when you finish this video. Hopefully you finish this video and my sweet voice doesn't turn you off. Okay, well, enjoy.
We don't have to record it, but if I could do what we call a volleyball, this is our other volleyball, which is to kind of like acknowledge that we're in a space that belong to ancestors, right? And as such, we're speaking on their behalf every day. So, Jadi sana pura dali dat je van o maar en de zo weer. Ik kuide am dan flange dali po de la mo sa tan de gule. Pol na sa ton. Ik por mo le sa. Si mar ko ko sor mar ko. Ai si na now. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we started rolling, so do you mind just like telling us what you just did a little bit?
It's not like a literal translation, but essentially that it's an appeasement to spirit to clear a space so that that in the line of what we're doing, for example, like in this case a podcast, right, is that our minds are cleared and that we have a particular sense of space of where we are, and that it's a protected space. But essentially that's what the Dollar is meant to do, to provide that kind of clarity, protection, and guidance. And it's an appeal again, and also to honor and appease our ancestors. Right?
Okay, beautiful. What a beautiful way to start. I want to start also by acknowledging this horrible voice of mine. For the audio only listeners, for the audio only listeners, no, this is not a pubescent boy that you're listening to. And no, this is not a chain smoker of 40 years talking to you. The person talking to you is a grown woman that made a mistake. And what's that mistake? She went to karaoke the night before and there was a broken mic. And what do you do when one of the two mics break? You just scream louder so that everyone can hear you. And look, could I have done better? Yeah, for sure. But we move on, we persist, because you know what? The show goes on. And if the audio is really bad, maybe I'll edit it, maybe I won't. But at the end of the day, I'm not the important one here. It's the two people in front of me who are friends of the podcast. They've had their own episodes. Melissa was the last one that I interviewed back in October, and Larry has several episodes with Independent Guahan and Fanachu that he's done, and I wanted to bring them kind of back in a new space, in this space, but also kind of in a new light, talking about kind of different topics that they haven't really gotten to talk about, or people just maybe haven't asked, or haven't had the space to ask. So but for anyone that doesn't know, I think you guys have so many accolades and I don't know where to start. So Melissa, would you just kind of like to talk about who you are first?
Okay, but how would I talk about the space first?
Oh, she's so right. Oh my God, she's so smart.
So this space, which is it's interesting that we're now, this is where Siguro, the Island Wisdom Canoe House of UOG was built with the support of the PD mayor, Lieutenant Governor's office, and the people of PD. And the space is so special in that we know it as Tupungan, which means never to capsize. And it's when, of course, during Typhoon Marwan, we lost the canoe house. It needed to be rebuilt. We're still not yet complete, but we're getting there. And so in that light, in that vein, in that kind of spirit of resiliency, and really telling of the people who really wanted to make it happen, and all the people that helped, to allow for this to come up, which is the Lieutenant Governor's office, of course, the University of Law, the Mayor's office, the Department of Agriculture. So all of it together, combined effort. It's not an effort of just us; it's an effort of everybody. It's a community coming together, which is what we're about. So me. I guess the first thing to say is I'm first a daughter to my mother from Vigo. My last name is Taitano. My name is Taitano. I was born and raised here in Guam. I'm a professor at the university. But I'm also a private navigator. The title of navigator by leading captain. And in Barry was my teacher. He was my master navigator, brought me into skills in the school of art, and then adopted by Casper that I moved to the state of Fanachu. So very firmly rooted, but also very firmly rooted first and foremost as an actual. Very excited to be here. A little bit more, that's good.
Oh, no. Perfect. Larry, would you like to let us know who you are?
Sometimes it's kind of difficult to talk about oneself, and so maybe I kind of circle back to your comments earlier, but at the end of the day, you're not that important. Well, you are important. And for that matter, not so much us, but I want to stress that it's other people. I think Melissa alluded to. It's the governor's office, it's the mayor, it's the Department of Agriculture, it's the university, it's the community. But maybe even more so than that, it's our Pinog, those who taught us, and spirits, if you like, with ancestors who came before us. So I'm Larry. Raigetal is my name. I come from Lamatrek, although my lineage is from my mom's side is from Puluat, and as stated earlier, from the state of Amboylan, where my knowledge of traditional navigation really comes from. So this makes sense. I am also an assistant professor at the University Guam, teaching courses that relates to traditional practice in seafaring. Seafaring as in a system of everything, right? As you know, Anne, you're also an apprentice that has been with me for many years. And you know that our learning spans from just talking stories to building something, whether it's a hut or it's a canoe or something else. So that's my role, official role at the university now. But first and foremost, maybe I'm also surviving some mother's child too. But it's good to be here. And a top story with you.
I realize that the older you get, the harder it is to answer that question.
Because you just have like this whole history and this whole lifespan of things. It's like, where do I start?
But I think at the end of the day too, those things are not really that important.
Right.
in terms of accolades, in terms of our achievements. Not, not, I shouldn't say not important, but in the context of what we do, right? I think more importantly is what is all going off to to Lex, to Isaiah, to you, to the apprentices that are part of this whole thing together. And so that those are some of the difficulty of also us kind of like talking about us, because it's not about us.
Yeah.
It's about everyone, and most especially those who came before us, right? Because man, imagine if they never really got on those canoes and came here, where would we be? No idea, but I know we won't be here. That much I know. I won't be here. I don't think.
Part of the, I think, also in the teaching of navigation, but also culturally rooted, right, in Chamorro culture, Micronesian cultures, cultures of different islands within Micronesia, is that the foundation of everything really is about nurturing, building, forging relationships and network of community, right? And so I think that's a big part of what we're doing at the university and with traditional navigation in ways that are very different. Traditional navigation was very particular communities, particular families, particular clans, and so the stretching and outreaching and building bridges is something that I think that's crucial, right, to what we do, which is why um, it's not simply just it's not like just a partnership, but it's coming to know people, right? It's coming to know our students caring about the people that we work with, all with one particular mission, which is to benefit everyone in the entire, people on the island, the community, not just the university, right? And the Micronesian region just in general. So
Yeah. It's kind of great how the conversation flowed in this way, because I didn't really tell you guys what we're talking about. And to be honest, I didn't really have an idea what I wanted to talk about. But I only had like one idea, or like I only had this like kind of small theme in my head, was that I think a lot of people, when they ask you about like what you do, they ask you about like journeying, the stars, like this canoe. But to me, to me, a beautiful thing of what you guys are doing right now is the community aspect of it. You're getting, we had, we had a conversation maybe like a week ago about how there's just so many different people that come through this canoe house, and it's like every week we're like, who's coming? Like, we don't know, and it's always like such a diverse group of people. And I also liked how you guys thought it was important to acknowledge space too, because that was another thing I was interested in talking to you guys about, was I really wanted to do this episode at this time because of the canoe house. We talk so much about the canoe and bringing out the canoe, but this canoe house to me is the most important thing in a way, because it's not just a place for the canoe to sit. This is a place of learning. This is a place of community. Like, just building this thing up was such a community effort, and it's been a beautiful thing to be able to watch. In a sense, this has been a class project, a university project with your students from UOG, but in so many ways, like I said, you never know who's going to come in this weekend or on a random Tuesday, and it's kind of been like I would say the most beautifully random community project, without it, intending it to be like this giant Guam community project. In a sense, it was like there's a class that's required to learn about canoe house building, but so many other people have gotten the privilege to be here and be connected to this thing that's so much more than just wood and nipa and shade on a sunny day, you know. So I think it's what you guys have been doing here.
We have been doing
What
here.
Yeah.
we
You were
Yeah.
cutting.
we
You were
all
in the Talifofo River getting nipa
yeah
with us as well.
And I will also give you an A+ for not for winging things and understanding that you know, preparing yourself for a point and what you want to ask. Sometimes you just let those drive you, and sometimes as we've been like in our learning, even the concept of lamoiserai, of not knowing what Mother Nature is going to give us, right? So I appreciate that very much, and that you even you acknowledging that that was, you know, like you didn't even tell us what we were going to talk about. You had some thought, but you allow it to morph into what it needs to be. It's an assurance to all of us also that maybe beyond us there are you know, reasons for everything, and mode of delivery in different spaces. But and me, I'm laughing because I'm like, Annie, you're just right on as you're supposed to do. You know, that's what this whole thing is about. You know, and Melissa can go on and talk about, you know, some concept of
Models.
models or roles or stuff, but she and I
Right.
have really, from our teachers and just like everybody else, you know, we do it. We know what we're gonna do.
Right.
We want to sail, but if there's something that comes in the way that needs to be adhered to, we do it, right? And so we just reaffirm our teaching in many ways too. So
Right.
I don't know if you want to.
Well, yeah, I think part of what Island Wisdom is about really is what we refer to as epistemic modernization, which really means that Western um, you know um, Western academia or Western epistemologies or ways of knowing and knowledge brought together and given access to indigenous ways of knowing come together in a relationship of mutual benefit, not one of exploitation that we know historically has been, has been kind of normalized. Um, but in order to do that, right, we can't go to communities of navigators with a preset idea of how we're going to organize things. I mean, we have to have some idea a little bit, but we have to have faith that when they gather, that in the way that things are done, let's say conversations happen, that those things are telling. They create their own models. We create our own models as we do that, and to allow that, we need to kind of step back from
Yeah.
having, prescribed ideas of questions we're going to ask, which is totally counter to what scholarship is about. When you go and get, when you're getting your dissertation, you have to develop a set ahead of time. You have to have a tool, a survey tool. You have to base your ideas and your research on established models, right? Established theory. Well, you know, what's the whole point? If you want to be able to gain access and really learn, right, from communities with maybe you haven't had or we haven't had access to, by forcing those ideas. And so we just came up in a situation where, we had to think about that because we always want to provide the opportunity. I always kind of humble ourselves, even though we come from the academic institution, that you know um, people are a lot smarter than we are. We don't give enough. We don't give people enough credit, and we have an opportunity to learn. But to do that, we have to respect space, and respect spirit, and respect energy, and accord tauto and dignity to people we work with and people we encounter.
But if I could also just kind of like go off to add on to the theme that you were talking about of this canoe house, uh, and as I also in my uh, time with all of us as we talk, I always wanted to highlight the fact that this is it. This canoe house plays a significant role. You know, canoes are important. Um, Navigation, the art and skills of navigation is important. everything. But it all starts somewhere where community comes together and understand that there is a need. Maybe these were the old classrooms, but perhaps, these were the classrooms, and they remain so today for us. The space where it's more than, as you point out, just nipa leaves and wood and lashed together. No, it's beyond that. The work put into it, as you said, the community involvement, but maybe even more is what's going to happen in this space. And if we allowed that, magical things would come. That even us are like, oh, I just wanted to kind of touch on the fact that you're really hitting what is really critical and important. I sometimes just having this here. You remember that we had one before, as was stated. Typhoon Mawar took it down, and I can't help but think like also none of what was that put down by Mawar was ever wasted. In fact, this whole structure has you know come back on, reusing every material that we could from the old one. You know, and there was no contribution of rubbish from this space to the piles of rubbish that were accumulated from the storm or from that typhoon. And that says a lot about the wisdom of our ancestors and why, yes, big typhoon and it will take it down, but it will come back up. That's how it is, right? And so I'm glad that it's up, and it's also bringing people and communities together.
And I also think the magic that he speaks about really is why we have former students, people who are, friends of the canoe house that regularly come, why we have students staying after class, right? That it's
He's one of those.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can't get rid of them. No, just joking. No, but it's not. They're not coming for us, right?
Yeah.
They're not coming for us. And it never ceases to amaze me the diversity in the people. We've got older people, we've got younger people, we've got students who are part of the diaspora, multi-generational, multiracial, racial, people of mixed heritage, people of Chamorro heritage, people of Micronesian heritage, people of Mexican heritage, right?
Sure.
So it's definitely not. We just know it's a special space, and I think we're just conduits of trying to opening that up for people, right? Like you, like all of our students, for the community.
I think something you guys were talking about earlier that I kind of want to talk about a little more, having preconceived notions of how things should go, like how things should be taught, or how, like, just all these things, and that you had to kind of create your own way of your own way of teaching, your own way of building community. And I guess I kind of want you to talk a little bit more about that, about like what was it like to kind of obviously navigation is not something that's like gone, so you're not building from the ground up, but in a way, because you're building your own kind of path, right? With what we have here is like traditional, but it is also unique in the way that you guys have been building and teaching and just all these things. So I kind of wonder how did that start for you guys, building up this well, of course it started with a course, right? But starts with a course and then kept going bigger and bigger and bigger to becoming, part of Island Wisdom, having the certificate. And then you guys have so many dreams, not dreams, actually goals, right? It's not dreams if you're working towards it, it's goals, and beautiful goals at that. What was the starting point for the both of you guys to start doing what you're doing?
Oh, I don't know if this is going to answer it in the way you want it. I don't know, but I think my process really was one of deep listening, calm and quiet, and observing and of accepting that and coming and acknowledging that um, I'm flawed and limited in my own perception of things, and that I have much to learn. I think that's the starting point. Um, and the building or kind of finding a way is really an iterative process, but the foundation of it is about ensuring we're inclusive of people, of being affect aware. In other words, that our actions have consequences and they affect people, right? So we also come, I think, from an approach where we want to be informed and guided by history, right? And I mean history, our ancestral, spiritual history, also history, narrative, like normative history, um, but with an orientation that looks towards the future. So it's future oriented, right? Uh, so kind of that is like the start, without getting into like the details of
Yeah.
how. I think the foundation of that, of believing in what we're doing, believing that it could have potentially great impact, but being careful along the way that that what we do and how we do it and how we treat people, is a way that would help to nurture and build relationships, as we talk. So I think that was like the beginning.
Mm. And yeah, if I can add on to that too, because and I think it's so both Melissa and myself and all of us for that matter, we're in a different 21st century what our islands present, which means like influenced in some ways, in a lot of ways, by Western, or whether it's Western products or thinking or what, from. But for me, I know that when I left my island at a very young age and going off in pursuit of what I wanted to term as formal learning in the corners of concrete walls. That journey took me to places where I never thought I would have gone to, but there was one thing that remained and grew even more stronger for me, was the fact of that I have to return. I have to go back. I need to go home. There was something else reinforcing my belief that there's something that these islands got that is not just beautiful, but it's got to be able to offer. And so my whole journey after that, of leaving that pursuit behind and thinking like, okay, how do I do this? One day I met Melissa, of course, but the island wisdom. I started to see that maybe perhaps one good way of pushing forward what our islands and ancestors and island wisdoms and has to offer was to begin somewhere in those spaces where young people are coming to learn, whether it's in a school of K-12, whether it's in the university. But I felt really strongly about bringing that into those spaces, and then I found Melissa and her team at that time also looking for ways where those spaces can open and bring in exactly that. And so I think, from there, it just kind of like drive on the idea and concept that, even though our islands, and Marianas in particular, Guam, has been colonized for a long, long period of time, um, at least those small atolls, we maybe we didn't have something of value to the colonizers, that they didn't colonize us, but we retain and hold on to these things that, at least for me, I feel like there is a greater need for it to bring forward and to start somewhere, as to and and I know that that journey, this journey, um, that we're taking all together um, has all kinds of implications of opening up our minds. Because I think decolonizing minds is very important too, right? And I've always like jokingly said, hey, if we can, how about if we use this to colonize our colonizers, in some ways, maybe this could be and interestingly enough, I know that that is not a far-reaching thing. So I've seen and I've come across, people that Melissa and I joke sometimes, man, they're just in the wrong body. But I think those things are propelling us even more forward and coming together to use this platform to achieve some of our, uh, I don't know if it's a collective goal of people. I'm so happy that we have a leadership at the university who is forward thinking, who sees the great value of this. I mean, I don't know of any other institution of higher learning in the region and perhaps in the Pacific who's taken this bold step forward. And I have to give credit to the leadership, the likes of President Anita, Dean Monique, and all of these folks who believe in this and believing in a way of giving us the flexibility to develop what we need to do, the courses, and get this program running. We are now having a certificate. I must also acknowledge that even the Zoamti now has a certificate program of their own, and we take pride in that, and we want them, want to also be very supportive of how these programs can further expand. Because remember, it wasn't just navigation or Zoamtis. There's like all kinds of indigenous ways of knowing and knowledge that perhaps needs to come to the forefront if only we give the space. And I think that the UOG is going down that road of allowing that space for indigenous practitioners.
Yeah, along the same lines is, ultimately, right? Um, we like to be able to move from a framework of resiliency, which I think is, it's an honorable thing, but it can get very boring and exhausting, you know, to moving to what a greater potential that I think that our people have, that and that is a framework of innovation and creation. We've been doing it already, right? But I think that it's a process. It's a part of a longer process of decolonization, right? As Larry said, of our minds and of our spirits and of our, how we do things, right? Our efforts.
We're back from a break, and we have the most special guest, the highest of special guests, the students we were just talking about. Good things. Only talking about good things. And I guess I just want to go around and have them introduce themselves.
Buenas, Guajusi Nolan Flores. I'm in the MSP program, Micronesian Studies program.
Buenas, Guajusi Michaela Blas. I'm also in the Micronesian Studies program.
Guajusi Isa Flores. I'm in the Micronesian Studies program also.
You guys are we're all in a beautiful program, Micronesian Studies. And it's such a broad spectrum of research and knowledge. And you guys chose to be here with us today and under this canoe house, under Larry and Melissa. But I kind of wonder what was your thought process, or what kind of made you guys gravitate towards this class and kind of this way of knowing?
I decided to register for the seafaring course. This is actually my second semester in the program. This is my second semester in the seafaring program. But I decided to register for the course initially because it was a different learning opportunity. We're used to traditional classroom settings, and I felt that coming out to the canoe house, and initially when I first signed up for the course, I thought we would learn strictly traditional navigation. Like we'd be out in the water, we learn about the stars, but when I had entered the course, it was the aftermath of Typhoon Mawar, and we had to reconstruct the canoe house. And I felt like it was a really great way to get into the program because we're basically rebuilding it. We were rebuilding the canoe house and harnessing all these skills that I would not have learned if I did not take this class. So, in addition to all of the knowledge that we learned from Paululari, I also learned a lot of hands-on skills that I could take with me for the rest of my life.
Yeah, same thing. It's nice to break, I guess, just the classroom setting, right? To get out of that and also to have a class where one day out of the week we dedicate our time to being here at the canoe house and um, breaking away from the hustle of whatever busyness we have going on. It's nice to have to do that and get credit for it, right? Um, yeah, the practices, the different traditions that we're learning, and seeing also how everything that we're doing here kind of connects to like our coursework, right? So we've all been through a lot of the history of Micronesia, peoples and cultures of Micronesia, but to see it and kind of relate it all to each other, I think has really been big for me, right? So when we covered seafaring in Dr. Clement's class, we're talking about it here, and we're talking story with Palulari and the guests that he brings here, and just to connect all of that is really fulfilling, really enriching to like my entire academic experience, not just the course, right?
Yeah, I really relate to what they say about like how this is like a different classroom environment. That's really why I chose to be in this class. Me moving here to Guam from Vegas, I wanted to try new things and experience things that would push me out of my comfort zone. And being in a classroom that's outside is very different from my experience in my undergrad and even in the Micronesian Studies program so far. This is such a unique class, and you can't get anything like this like anywhere else. So, and I really just want to contribute to the preservation of traditional practices.
Um, you guys have been here for a bit of time already. What's something that surprised you, kind of learning in this space?
That's a tough one because I'm always surprised. Every time we come together for class, I learn something new and I walk out of here thinking like how did I not know this before? Like it's things that we kind of take for granted. Even just assembling this structure. Um, I would have never. I mean, you see it. They have similar structures up for like the purpose of tourism, but assembling this together as a class and like understanding we're not just doing it. And the beautiful thing about this class and being under Paululari's guidance and also Dr. Taitano is that they don't just tell us like this is what you need to do. They explain why these things need to be done. And just an example, and I always have questions, and Paulo Larry knows. I'm like, what is the most important part of the thatch? And then he explains to me like the it would be on this way because the bottom parts of the maybe you could do like a B-roll of the thatches here. the bottom the
Get one.
the bottom part of the thatches are eventually going to disintegrate. So the layering and the way that the structures are built and these particular beams or to put the thatches together. I'm just rambling at this point, but I guess to answer the question, I'm always just surprised with all of the things I get to take away from this class. There's just a lot of traditional knowledge that we get to absorb, and I'm very grateful that we have a course like this. And I hope that everyone else can take something from this class, and together as a community, we can help advance it and bring more attention to the class because there's other things that would make it better, like a truck. We need a truck.
Who's the pitch to? Our grantors. Yeah, I think jumping off from there, a surprising thing has been, or not surprising, but a very interesting thing has been just how the traditional kind of integrates and complements the contemporary, right? So when we're in our classes, it's very easy to talk about, theory and how things should be. But here we're kind of seeing things in action, right? And we're also um, seeing that process of negotiation, right, between traditional and contemporary, where even when we're building these things, yes, you can do it the old way, right, or not the old way, but the traditional way, with all of the traditional materials. But there's also ways that we can use, we can integrate uh, tools like the chainsaw, right? It's always whenever Pelulari's using the chainsaw, I say Biba Island wisdom, because it's stuff that complements our lives today, right? Yeah, same thing with like the rope. You can use the pandanus root, or you can just use twine, right, for the thatches. So yeah, yeah, best of both worlds. So we're in this process of like picking and choosing what is most helpful, right, and most beneficial to us today, which I think is huge and valuable to other aspects of this kind of work, right?
I was just thinking about it this morning. Like, I was saying, like, oh, I never know what's gonna happen. Like every time I come into class, and like, I was like, wait, why am I complaining about that? Because, well, I wasn't complaining, but I was like, I was like, sometimes I'm nervous because I don't know what's happening. But then I was like, you know what? That's such a good thing to experience for myself because life isn't about like having a strict schedule every day. I'm like that. Like I like to put everything in a calendar. I like to read syllabus, like read a little schedule of everything, but that's just not what like life is always about. That's not what traditional practices are always about too. Like it's such a good growing and learning experience to be in an environment where you kind of have to be like adaptable. You have to like be open to new things, be open to the changes that come with being in an outside environment like this. And that was what was surprising to me in this class, that I really had that experience, that growing experience.
Can I jump in also because I mean I was just listening to the three of them talking, and I think of like my own personal convictions of like I think people who are of these islands have something that is uniquely islander in them, that regardless of where they're born and raised, like Isa for example, I think giving the space where that island part of them needs to come out, including not fearful of uncertainties, will come. And it just reinforces what Melissa and I sometimes allude to, maybe lightly said, it's all in the DNAs, guys. It's all in you. It's just a matter of reinvigorating it some way by providing some spaces for it, and not feeling like we all have to adhere to certain syllabus or certain agendas or criteria, because the Moiserai is also what we teach these guys, and that is, as we had talked earlier about, sometimes nature is our best teacher, and it just brings out what truly is inside each one of us. And so I look at these guys and I'm like, okay, good, you're coming to the space, you're learning that it's okay not to have something organized. It's totally okay not to have that, because as seafarers and as voyagers, we anticipate what's there, but always being mindful that some certain things are beyond us. It's going to be certain forces, elements that's going to dictate how it works. And maybe that's revolutionary in its own way of education, form of learning. But I see it in all of the students that come around. I'm walking away feeling like, yeah, it's okay.
So it's one of the, just adding on to Larry and his observation, and I feel so happy, and I feel so, I feel really honored that you guys are sharing, and I didn't realize how overwhelmed I would feel just in hearing your thoughts, because it's one thing for us, to be talking about the program and what we think we're doing, right? But we, in fact, when we were talking before that, really the best people, and to talk about what does this mean, really, our students, right? And I appreciate your questions, Annie, and kind of, drawing and kind of guiding that way, and how they have took it, and made it their own. And this is one of the things that's really incredible about being outdoors and in this space, is that everybody who's made differently. I mean, I think that every student that we've had, really have incredible potential. They have light, and they're their own unique being. Every single one of you guys are, every single person that we meet, they have something to contribute, but maybe don't learn in the same way, or maybe pick up different things. And when we're out here, the sound of the ocean, the sound of the trees, that somehow it's welcoming and provides that, whatever that is, for people to feel okay inside, not the anxiety of having to perform, not the anxiety of having to meet, the deadlines, or be like other people when they do presentations, or what is the teacher thinking about, and how are you being graded, right? You're allowed to be yourself and to grow, but in a service and a project that's community oriented, talking about community and relations, right? Working together. You guys just don't talk to the person in front of you or behind you or beside you and then take off, when class ends. Normally you guys are staying back longer, right? And there's always an opportunity to kind of get to know another person, right? So I don't want to say any more because I'm really enjoying this, but I just want to thank you guys, because it's so, heartwarming for me to just listen and hear what you have to say. Thanks for the opportunity, Annie.
Melissa, on our one-on-one podcast, we were talking about how you don't really often get the opportunity to speak with students on this in-depth level like we're doing, about how a class has impacted them or their learning experience. So I really love this opportunity to really get to tell you and tell Larry about how meaningful this experience has been. Of course, I'm speaking on my own behalf, but I'm sure they can talk to it as well and probably agree. I would also like to talk to the students about something we were talking about earlier. You guys talked about the uniqueness of this experience, and there's so many ways where that's obvious. Like, just visually, we're not confined to 4 concrete walls. I say that this is the breeziest class I ever had in my life.
I don't think you've ever had anybody describe it. This is a breezy.
But yeah, it is though. It's the breeziest class, and you're not claustrophobic, and you're not held down, and there's just so much to it. And then again, the learning aspect is so unique, like what you guys were saying earlier, that you come in and you don't know what you're gonna get. And I was just wondering if you guys could speak more to that a little bit. About this kind of once in a lifetime experience to learn in this way. Cause kind of like what I was saying before, this isn't something that they created. This is traditional learning that has already existed, and that they're building upon the foundations of it, something that has always been there before. And I know this is so long-winded, but I kind of want to hear more about, we've all come from this Western form of education, and taking in knowledge that way, and how does it feel on both an academic level and a personal level to have this new, but not new, because this is something we've always should have had. This is something that has always been with our people, our island, our ocean, this way of knowing. It's just something that's coming back to you. So academically and personally, how does it feel to be in a space that's coming back to you?
All of my experience like in school was always like we're sitting in a classroom, sitting in a chair, we're either like in lines or we're like all facing each other in a circle. And then there's like participation points. Oh, I hate participation points. Like, oh my God, as like an introverted person and like a quiet person, like just being forced to like say my thoughts, like I have like that class period to think of what I need to say, or I mean period, like I'm talking like I'm in high school, like class to say what I have to say, and then at the end of the class, like if I don't say something, I don't get a point. And it's like that is just I like never you think that that would take someone out of their shell, but like it never does. Like it just it does the opposite of that, I feel like. And I always end up saying like something that I don't really agree with in those situations. And I feel like I end up not interacting with my classmates. Like, I feel like it does the opposite of increasing interaction between um, classmates. Like, it makes me feel even more distant. Like, we're performing, I guess. And one aspect of this class that really like that I really like is that we're always working together, like we're always working together, of course, like and then like the conversations that come about when we do work together are so different from what conversations we would have like in a traditional classroom. Being in a classroom like this, it makes me just want to talk more, I guess. Like I don't really want to talk like in classroom environments where like we're performing in front of the professor. I never feel like I'm performing in this class, and that's like a beautiful thing. Um it's also such a beautiful thing like just to hear like everyone's native languages being spoken to each other like in class in a classroom. Like I never thought that I would be in a classroom like this where like I'm hearing like my classmates speak Chamorro to each other, and that's a really special thing that you don't experience at school in the States or just in Western education in general.
And I think you guys said it well, um, about like centering ourselves, right? So this knowledge and this way of knowing has always been inside of us, right? We're just so used to this. You go to school, right? You're in these four walls, and the authority, right, is this professor who's supposed to you're supposed to get something from them, right? You're supposed to just kind of inhale everything that they're spewing, right? Yeah, yeah. When in reality, truly knowing something is so much different, right? It's not That's not how we come to know things, um our way, right? It's more of this like you guys, right, are helping us to kind of pull it out from ourselves and say it's always been there. You just haven't known how to necessarily connect with it, right? Or how to apply it in the sense of today, right? So I think that's been huge, of just breaking down that authority, and also just, yeah, the way we learn. Like we're learning all of this together. We're learning not just from a single person, but from one another. We're learning from all of these different things around us, right? From the people that come to our class that we don't know who they are, but they're helping us in all of this, and that's there's a lot of value in that. The shared ways of knowing, right? Shared ways of learning, yeah.
I think to jump off of that too, and what Nolan had just said about like it's always been inside you, and this class is basically helping us find that. It made me think of how there's, like I mentioned earlier, there's so much that I learned here that I would not have learned anywhere else. And I every day I leave this class, I think about how grateful I am for this opportunity. No, I never want it to leave, and even after I graduate, I'm gonna keep showing up. You can't get rid of me because there's just always something to learn every single time we come together. And I think about people like myself who would not be able to learn certain skills because there's no one there to teach them. My family is majority female, so we don't have a lot of men around to show us certain ways to do things. Like I only have one uncle that fishes, that crab hunts, and all of these things. And growing up, I always wanted to follow him around and just learn these things, but it's always like, you can't because you're a girl. You can't go in the jungle because you're a girl. And what did that make me do? It just made me a girl who does all these things anyway, but I don't have proper guidance. So being under this umbrella, and the way that it's institutionalized, it makes me hope that UOG will have future programs that are related to traditional knowledge that we don't have a lot of people to pass it down, or maybe some people, they don't have family members who have that knowledge. Like we have the weaving course that's offered every so often, and hopefully we'll have we have the zoamti, and hopefully we'll have like jewelry making and like carving. I know we have the canoe carving, but like carving other things and other traditional skills that can be institutionalized for people like myself that unfortunately have to register for a class to learn these things that are just supposed to be a part of you. And it's great because classes like this, it's inside of you. You just need someone to help you, get it out of there.
All
We
right.
were just talking, the three of us, yeah, and then you all showed up and sat under that thing. And then we're like, okay, let's take a break. And I know what's on our mind. Like, hey, this is
Wow.
this is the group to talk about this whole
Yeah.
thing,
If we're coming early.
Yeah.
No, we weren't even
Oh, on time,
To-
on time.
Totally unplanned. Yeah, you're totally
Yeah,
unplanned.
totally, but beautifully like I don't know how I couldn't even imagine a better way in the collectively how you guys have talked. A better, I mean, it was so authentic, and you guys brought out things that were so true, and you could feel that to be like real, and I would imagine that if people were to like see and feel that, I mean, they would feel what you're feeling. That's how powerful, and how you're in the way that you spoke. I know permeates just like nature, like the sound of, makes sense in that way, right? Sound of nature, in that same way, like the way you spoke, like spoke to me. I'm sure I know spoke to
Yeah.
Larry, spoke to Annie. So thanks for that. That's great.
So that's the end of the video. Sorry we don't have a regular outro like we usually do. I had to cut that out for reasons, and it is what it is. But thank you again so much to Isa, Nolan, Michaela, Melissa, Larry, Marion, my friend Vince, everyone that was on the podcast, that helped the podcast, and to you for watching and being a part of all of this. Really, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, YouTube, all the social medias, Instagram. Subscribe to our Patreon, become a patron. We have a lot of great exclusive content for you guys over there. It's wonderful people making wonderful things. And I hope to see you guys again soon with another episode that I don't want to promise, but I will do my best to do better and not karaoke. If there's one thing I can promise, is I promise I will not scream at karaoke the night before and lose my voice. I can at least do that. Anyway, thank you so much again for watching, and I'll see you next time.